Hello, good people of YouTube. Welcome to episode 88 of What Makes This Song Special. A sort of desert island discs of mine where I've been very greedy, and rather than doing, I don't remember how many you get in Desert Island Disc, 7 or something like that, I'm working towards 100 and maybe more, but definitely 100 episodes before I move on to another idea that I've got for later on this year, which I will reveal very soon. But yeah, I'm going to tell you a wee story today that I'm sort of taken back to when I listened to today's song. Songs always kind of take us somewhere in our memories, back to when you first heard them or when you were listening to them a lot in maybe a story or a chapter of your life. So I'm going back to this for me, and you can tell me if it's a special one for you too. The other thing I'm going to do is talk a wee bit about the song. Not too much, just a little bit about the song, how it was received, a little bit about what the song's about, and a little bit about today's singer, who is Burgh. A wee bit of a vocal coach analysis at the end. And then I'll do a part 2 where I will do my own cover version of today's song. So yeah, let's move on to the story. So, spring 2001, I was in a band called Vici with my pals Davey, Gordon and Ian, and we were tipped to be the next big thing to come out of Scotland by ourselves. I don't know if it was by anybody else, but we were writing songs, playing gigs everywhere we could, and of course dreaming of the big time. I've mentioned this band in a few episodes now, and yeah, you if you've tuned in for stories before, you might have heard other stories that involved the band Vici, or Vicious Circle as it was previously known. But we had a management deal at this point with a guy called Frank Shapiro. I can't remember the name of Frank's company, but that was the management company who were looking after us at the time. And Frank had been our manager for maybe a couple of years by this point, and he'd also been the manager of a couple of really successful acts or artists, namely sort of 90s boy bands. He was the manager of 911, who were a really big band in Britain at one point in the 90s, and another band called Miro, who were another big kind of Scottish boy band. So Frank was really good to us. Frank, if I'm being honest, sometimes I look back and I feel bad that Frank and I didn't always see eye to eye. We never fell out as such, but we definitely had different ideas about how we wanted to go about the quest for fame for our band at the time. And you know, he was 30 years older than me and had a lot more experience in the industry than I did, so I probably should have just shut up and followed his lead. But I couldn't help but argue and debate with him all the time on decisions regarding the band. And as the sort of lead singer, you always feel that you're sort of like the lead, sort of the leader of the band, if you like. Even though it was quite a kind of well divided thing in terms of decisions and stuff, but quite often people would look at me as being the kind of the last one to make a decision on things. And Frank and I quite often we didn't always agree. And you know, his success had been with managing boy bands, 90s boy bands, so the kind of you know, the type of band that I'm talking about. I'm sure that's an international term, but certainly the terminology of boy band in the UK at the time was definitely kind of 3 or 4 or 5 guys who would maybe not play instruments but would sing along to backing tracks with harmonies, and lots of girls would usually have posters of them on their wall and stuff. And that wasn't us. That's not what we wanted to be. We were a rock and roll band, you know, like real instruments and guitars and all that sort of stuff. So I think some of the decisions that he made and the direction that he wanted to go in, sometimes I felt was a bit more like the boy band route, and I wanted us to be this rock and roll band. And yeah, it didn't sometimes just didn't work out. And he wanted us to do the toilet tour, as I called it, you know, the kind of playing in every sort of terrible crap hellhole of a pub that would have us to get experience of playing to crowds. And I didn't see the point at the time. And again, I was under this ridiculous illusion at that age that someone was going to hear us, swoon at how amazing we were, and sign us up. And in hindsight, I completely understand why Frank wanted us to do the hard work, but I just wanted him to use his connections to sort of get us into radio, TV, and maybe back up some huge established band at a festival or something. I felt like that was the easy route, and I don't think he thought we were ready for that at that point, and I guess we'll never know. But anyway, things were slightly shaky between me and Frank at this point in 2001. And then one day, out of the blue, he gets us this incredible opportunity. There was a programme on Channel 4 in the UK at the time called The Priory. And this was when there were only 5 channels available, unless you had Sky or cable TV. So the number of viewers for those shows was in the millions. If you were on one of the 5 shows that was on, terrestrial TV, is that what you called it? You were going to be seen. It was huge, it was massive. And it was hosted by Zoe Ball and Jamie Theakston, who were both hugely famous TV show presenters in the UK at the time. And Frank had managed to pull some strings and get us onto the show. We would be interviewed on the famous sofa, and then we'd get to play 2 of our songs. Wow, the stuff that dreams are made of, and we were absolutely made up. Frank had pulled off an incredible win for us, and I had to shut up for a while and stop arguing with him because he'd done exactly what I always wanted him to do. And so we awaited the details of this and got really excited about it. And when he broke down what would actually be happening, it transpired that we would actually be miming at the live bit where we played our songs on the show. And of course, me being me, I wasn't happy about this, and I threw a bit of a tantrum and we had a big fallout. And again, hindsight is a great oracle of wisdom, because of course it was too big an opportunity to pass up. But I couldn't see past the idea of having to see myself miming the songs on a TV show. I hated the idea of it. It was the type of thing that I would always slag other artists and bands off for. And when I saw them clearly lip syncing on Top of the Pops and shows like that. So I felt like I would be a real hypocrite to follow suit. But the rest of the band and Frank talked me into it, and I was outvoted. And everyone versus me on the decision sort of at the time felt, really unfair, but, it is democracy, So a few weeks later, with a fresh demo in hand, we arrived at the filming location, and it was called Gartloch Hospital, which was actually a closed down psychiatric hospital near Steps in the north of Glasgow. A spookier location you cannot imagine. I mean, it was just like hundreds of empty abandoned rooms with an echo in the place that went on for days. And Channel 4 had set up this, a few rooms downstairs in the sort of reception area, and some of the rooms downstairs in this old hospital. But apart from that, the entire hospital was still completely abandoned. And I mean, left like it'd been evacuated decades earlier, with lots of beds and old furniture still in the rooms, lots of equipment lying around, and just, yeah, it was like something out of a horror / sort of dystopian disaster movie. And like I said, just really spooky, And of course, in between the bits of the day that we were needed for, because when you record things like that, you're asked to go in and set up, and then you're told that you've got an hour, and then you come back in and you do an interview, and then you're told you've got another hour, and then you come back in and you do the song. So lots of little bits during that day where we got to wander off, and we weren't really supposed to, but we were wandering around this old hospital, this old abandoned mental institution, as it was called back then. Terrifying place, especially when the janitor came and spoke to us for a while, and he started telling us that there'd been dozens of ghost sightings and strange paranormal things going on in the place. And even if you don't believe in that stuff, which I don't tend to either, when you're in an abandoned mental institution, you can't help but be freaked out by every noise that you hear. So, and then we found out after talking to him for ages that there was no janitor that worked there. No, I was joking, obviously. There's like an episode of Scooby-Doo there. No, there was a janitor. He wasn't a ghost. But yeah, anyway, we set up for the recording. Me, Davey and Gordon, the guitarist and bass player, we decided we would swap all the cables around so that we're going into the wrong places. This was our way of sort of rebelling against the music industry for making us mime and not allowing us to play live. So we thought we'd give any viewers who knew anything about music or music production a bit of a laugh by seeing the microphone cable plugged directly into the piano, and the bass guitar being plugged directly from there into, I think, into the guitar, into the lead guitar, and yeah, sort of leads going into places that they shouldn't be, just to sort of prove the point that we weren't live and we weren't trying to kid anybody on. And so the reality is that probably nobody noticed, but we thought it was cool. We thought it was funny. We mimed along with the recordings badly, because I'd never mimed along to a song before. It was really difficult. We did our interview, we ate the free buffet, had an amazing afternoon. It was such a cool experience, and we were just so excited about seeing it on the TV. And I always remember just before we left, Davey found this old coin and he hid it above a door frame. He stuck it on above a door frame, and he said to me, "If we ever come back here, I'm going to see if that's still there." I have no idea why. I don't even know why I remember that. It's such a weird thing to remember, but I always remember. It was very Davey. If anybody knew Davey at the time, it was just a very Davey thing to do. But why would we be back in an old abandoned hospital? I don't know. But we almost were. I remember I left my suit jacket there by accident, and to this day, I've never get round to going back to get it. I doubt it's still there, 20 years on or whatever. But yeah, and just so in the car journey home, as is often the place where I suppose hear new music, and some of these episodes have brought me back to car journeys somewhere. I just remember the sun was shining and it felt like the winter was finally over, and there was this newfound hope in the air, like that spring always brings, and a newfound hope about the band, because things were starting to move in the right direction. A lot of things in my life were moving in a different direction at that point, and it all just felt so good. And Davey put on a cassette in the car on the way home. A cassette back in the day when people used cassettes, and it was a Burgh live album. Now, I remember laughing at him, to be fair, for having such a strange variety of music in his collection, his car. Most of the tapes in the car were like heavy guitar rock bands and guitarists like Yngwie Malmsteen, AC/DC, Skid Row, Gary Moore, Guns N' Roses, that type of thing. And we've just finished our first TV appearance in a rock and roll band, and we drive off into the distance listening to Burgh, who was kind of, I suppose, a kind of pop, quite cheesy pop stuff, but I mean, actually some great songs, to be fair, which we'll get onto in a wee minute. But this song came on, and the first thing that struck me was that the piano intro in the song sounded really like one of my songs that we'd just done on the demo. And I was panicking. I was thinking, oh God, that sounds too much like the introduction to my song. People will think I've stolen it from somewhere. But then it changed into something completely different. And I became sort of transfixed on this amazing melody, and the lyrics of this song's just one of those songs that pulls you into a story, and such an emotional power ballad. And de Burgh's voice sounds absolutely incredible on the live versions as well. Just a great singer. And of course the song was Borderline. Borderline, a song that was inspired by watching all the veterans coming back from the Falkland Island Wars, or Islands War rather, in 1982. And Chris de Burgh had said that it was an example of two leaders, Galtieri and Thatcher, waving their fist at each other and threatening all sorts of horrible things. But the people who get caught in the middle are the young soldiers, the thousands of young men killed on the Belgrano whilst a victory parade went on. In the background, almost out of view, were the young men and women who were victims of absolutely terrible burns and injuries, in wheelchairs, paralysed, some of them, and also the families of those who'd been killed. And de Burgh was upset and outraged by it at the time, and the scenes just touched his heart, and he sat down at the piano and he wrote Borderline. Such a powerful song, lyrically and musically and melodically, and just amazing. And I just kept rewinding it that day on our journey home. completely obsessed by my new find. I was all of a sudden in love with a new song, which is always a nice, exciting moment when you find a song that's just wow, you know. And it was just the perfect ending to a perfect day. So that's what I'm always brought back to when I listen to Borderline by Burgh. It's one of those songs that you don't hear that often. So on the very rare occasion that I hear it on, I don't know, a television programme or on a radio or something, or it's always just, it takes me straight there, straight to the back of the car, or the front of the car that day. Just listening to that on the radio and just being, blown away by it. As always, I'll talk a little bit about today's singer, Burgh. Burgh is a singer who doesn't get anywhere near enough credit. He has the ability to sing really high in his chest register without being too shouty, but also able to use a really strong connected head voice too. His delivery is very eloquent and he delivers every line clearly and concisely, so you always know what the song is about. Strong and powerful at points and also able to pull you in and make you cry. And I found a video of him singing Borderline last year at 74 years old, still in the original key, which is just incredible because it is a very high song, as I'm about to find out when I cover it for part 2 of this episode. But it sounds like he's really looked after his voice over the years. Very, very impressive. So yeah, well done to Chris for keeping it going. Awesome. So there you have it. Yeah, not too long an episode this week, but just a little story that I'm taken back to. A lot of change happened in my life that year, 2001. But the end of that summer, the band would actually be no more, sadly, and I'd have met my wife, Linz, who, we started dating that year as well. And the rest, as I say, is history. I would be signed to my first solo album record deal that year as well, which was just a phenomenal. 2001 was just an amazing year for me, lots of new chapters, and I felt like it all began on that spring journey home listening to Burgh after doing that recording for the TV. So that's why the song's special to me. I hope it's a special song to some of you that are watching or listening. Let me know why it's a special song in the comments. What does the song remind you of? Is it an underrated song? Is it a bit of a hidden gem? Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, please. We can do more of these videos. I've got another show starting. Once we've done 100, so we're 88, another 12 episodes of What Makes This Song Special, and I'm going to take a wee break from What Makes This Song Special, and I've got another wee idea, a wee concept for a show that we'll do, which will be, all musical, obviously, of course, music based, with some covers still, and I hope you're looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to starting that. But another few episodes to go of What Makes This Song Special. If you haven't already, please hit the like and subscribe button. It means a great deal. And if you're looking for any vocal coaching, any music production, anything at all, the remote, or if you're in Scotland or in Glasgow, give me a shout. And hope you enjoy part 2, which will pop up here somewhere any second. You can watch me and listen to me perform Borderline by Burgh, and I'll see you next week for another song and another story. Thanks.